So you want to learn how to build a superhuman physique. Well, the first step to getting there is understanding where you are on that journey and being very, very clear on what the priority and your focus should be with your time spent in and out of the gym.
What's up, everybody? My name is Yanni Baumeister, if we haven't met before, and I'm joined by my brother Rad Baumeister. Richie is behind the control panel. Together we are Unity Gym and the UMS. We are going deep today. We're going deep this week. I'm very excited about what we're talking about this week. We launched a brand new 28-day intensive this week in the gym, which is our flagship program. It's essentially putting your mouth onto a fire hose and turning it on and taking a drink with our UMS program. But it's the way that we really onboard people or educate people who can't train in our facilities or online, which there's really no excuse for anymore now that we have the online program. But we kicked off with our what we call fast growth workshop, and Rad was thrown under the deep end on the weekend and delivered the content all on his own, which he did a very good job of, because we were only allowed to have a small group of people because of the COVID restrictions and everyone's sort of sitting together. It's very hard to have 4 square meters for each person when you're trying to watch one screen presentation. So, but out of the group, it obviously was very well received, because out of the group, every single one of them joined the 28-day intensive. So it's a testament to the content and Rad's amazing last-minute ability to present the content. I'm holding in my hand here, for those of you on the podcast, you can't see this, but for those of you watching the video stream on YouTube or on our UMS Movement Mastermind group, this is the workbook. I'm actually red penning it right now one last time based on Rad's feedback. This is the workbook we gave out to everyone who did the course. Yeah, Rad, how'd you go? How'd it feel?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, it's, Yanni and I are obsessed with progress and progress in every area of our life. And so, both of us are never we never look at something and go, that's it, we're done. There's always a way that you can improve things. And one of the biggest areas of improvement for us has always been our member experience. And, we always ask ourselves the question, why do the three of us, Richard, Yanni and me, get so much better results with our training than most people do? And how can we help other people to get there? And this health hierarchy of needs is something that was just a massive light globe moment for us recently. And it when I presented it in that 28-day intensive and I saw these people nodding, and like you could see people having this aha moments, and people coming up to me afterwards saying how enlightening it was. It just makes sense, it really makes sense. So it was really good. It was great doing it. It was great meeting a whole bunch of new people, and seeing how excited they are to get, started on their journey, and having them in the gym this morning. It was awesome. It's a really good day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting because really what the health hierarchy does is, and this has stemmed from us sitting down doing a lot of thinking, and in all of the different presentations that we've done in the past, it's really us just standing and speaking to people and presenting to people. The difference this time was, which I was really really excited about, was that we turned it around and we really got people thinking, and that is the purpose of that fast growth workshop, is to get people to grow fast, to have a really big, revolutionary, holy crap, this is, what's going to unlock my true potential. And that's what the entire workshop's about. It's about helping people unlock their full potential very, very quickly. And it comes from us sitting down and looking at what got us where we are and what the most important first steps were. And the reality is, and a lot of people have said this before. I've heard Ido Portal say it. I've heard a lot of great coaches say it. Most people try to reverse engineer their body. Most people dive straight into the two things that we've identified to be the very last. And quite frankly, they're not two things that you really plan to build.
Yeah.
I don't believe, and I'll tell you why in a sec, because a lot of bodybuilders will completely disagree with me, or physique models, because the last two things on the health hierarchy are, and we've spoken about this a lot already to this group, they are mastery, movement mastery, and then below that, number 4 on the hierarchy is physique. And of course, obviously, 90%, 95% of the world set off from the very beginning to achieve high levels in either of those. That's it. They go to the gym to build a physique, or they go to the gym to become super strong, or they go to yoga to become super flexible,
Or gymnastics.
That's right, But I believe, and I'm pretty sure Rad will agree with me, that those two things come
pretty
as
sure. You're definitely sure,
yeah,
we've discussed
they
this.
come as a side effect to getting the first 3 right, And I'll tell you why I think this is really important, because this is not something that Rad was able to share over the weekend, because I wasn't there doing the workshop with him. I'm still suffering a little bit with my eye and being in quite a lot of pain when I'm under bright light. The reason why I don't believe you can successfully set off to achieve a superhuman physique from the get is because when your intentions are built around something like building a physique, you will, rightly so, to achieve greatness in anything, you've got to obsess over it, I believe, and I know Rad agrees with me on that. And when you become obsessive over your physique, you sacrifice things that are really important for longevity, like how your body performs and how your body feels. I know this for a fact because I did it myself, and I watched many of my friends do it. And I have many friends who were professional bodybuilders at the highest level, and they agree with me that when you're in the pursuit of an obsessive over your physique, you sacrifice your health. And it's no different when you're in the pursuit of mastery initially. You talk to any professional athlete, and health is a secondary priority to performance. I know many very high-level powerlifters, strongmen, CrossFitters who have knowingly and will 100% agree to the fact that they sacrifice their health, their function, for high levels of performance, And that's why I don't believe that it's a good idea to set off on your path, on your quest in exercise, in training, in health, focused on either of those priorities, because you sacrifice things that are very important, very important. The types of things that most people don't realize are important until they lose them, like longevity, like being able to train forever. Without chronic pain, without serious injury, without having to go under the knife for surgery, without really messing up their hormonal systems. Talk to 90. Well, I am yet to meet a female bodybuilder or physique model who hasn't completely messed up her endocrine or hormonal systems. In the pursuit of physical perfection. Now, reframe that. And what happens when you prioritize different things? When your priority is just on a daily movement practice. Now, when you look at the table here, you got one guy, myself, in the grey jumper, sitting here, who has completely sacrificed physical function for physique, and then a guy on the other side of the table who's, because of our different, passions growing up. Rad was passionate about Kung Fu. Kung Fu's a discipline where they really nail this, where they force you to nail the basics first without skipping those steps. And I think that may have had something to do with why our mentalities were so different growing up.
You think it may have?
Well, I didn't want to put words in your mouth.
It absolutely was. I mean, I had over a decade where I had a teacher. I mean, and it's not Kung Fu in general. It's only if it's a teacher. It's only if you have a good teacher, because there's so many martial arts academies where you can go and get a black belt in 4 years or something. And
it's interesting. Joe Rogan was talking about this on his podcast last week with who's the guy that did Extreme Ownership? Jocko Willing.
Yeah. I haven't heard that interview, but tell me about it in a sec. But in my personal experience, this is not true around the world. Of course, there are black belts out there that are amazing. But in my personal experience, the first sign that you can tell that somebody isn't good at martial arts is when they tell you that they're a black belt.
Yeah.
Because it's such a wank. You can get it so quickly. And, where a black belt actually came from is that everybody had a belt, and it started white, and people washed their gi, they washed their uniform, but they never washed their belt. And over time, it just got darker and darker and darker from the dirt that would accumulate on it. And that's how people would tell how advanced somebody was, by the color of their belt. Whether that's true or not, it
makes for a good story.
It makes for a good story, But my teacher was really different. My teacher was there were people that trained at our school for 5 years and were still a white belt. And they ended up leaving because they didn't like that they weren't progressing. But my teacher just wouldn't grade you if you weren't competent. He said, well, this is the competency that you need to achieve, and you haven't achieved that, so you're not ready to grade. And I was one of the highest, at the time I was the highest graded student at the academy, and I was only an orange belt, and that was after many, many years. Yeah. And that was not just a testament to what my teacher was. That was also an indication of that I hit a ceiling where I didn't train hard enough, and I didn't, I've spoken a lot about what I was like in my 20s, and because I was taking drugs and drinking alcohol, I got to a point where I just wasn't doing what was required to get better. But it definitely instilled a process in my mind that you do not move on to the next thing until you master the one thing. And I've got it wrong many, many times. Many times I've got that wrong, but I reminded myself of it and I went back to it. And that's why you and Phil always describe me as somebody who is better than most at just working on the basics and what you need to focus on.
Well, you've been programmed. And there's this very famous quote by Bruce Lee, I don't fear the man who can do 100 kicks okay, I fear the man who can do one kick excellent.
Yeah.
And that is a mentality in martial arts, where
I don't fear the man that did 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man that did one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah. That's the mentality. It's in Kung Fu at least, you really, really have to in most countries. Now, I've seen what belts do to my son in jiu-jitsu. I agree that there is a level there where you want to keep people motivated and keep people progressing, and you need to demonstrate progress. And so the belt system, I think, is fantastic. I think it's a fantastic way of demonstrating progress. I've watched what it's like when they have their little belt ceremonies and the kids get their level up, or they get a new white stripe on their belt or whatever else, and that it's just like they are just over the moon. It's what keeps them going,
Of course.
So I think that there's a real need for it, and that. But then I also agree that what Joe Rogan was saying is that nowadays, because there's so much money behind jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu entrepreneurs trying to encourage their top students to open a franchise under them so they can make money off them. But to do so, they need to have a black belt.
Yeah.
And so they're very, very quickly progressing people through what used to take a minimum of a decade to 20 years to achieve. Now you can do in a few years. And as a result, when someone reads out their mixed martial arts credentials, they're all black belts.
Yeah.
But half of them are useless at rolling and grappling, and they'd beat an average person, but when they come up against a true black belt who's been doing jiu-jitsu for decades, they get absolutely ass kicked, But anyway, look, I digress.
Yeah, look, the idea of what we want to get across to people today is that we made this mistake so many times ourselves, and we had members that we allowed to skip this process when we were earlier on in our days in fear of losing them, And we saw it time and time again. Either we injured ourselves or our members injured ourselves. And in my experience, again, there's very few people that are at a very high level that haven't gone through this process where they go and they injure themselves, and then they reflect on what they've done and realized that they've skipped certain steps in their training that they should have done, certain things that are going to lay a more solid foundation, and you end up going back and doing it again. Yeah. Working on things that if you had have worked on earlier, you wouldn't have injured yourself.
And you end up having to build your program around all of the issues that you've got in your body.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. What I have to do nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm constantly rehabbing an issue and figuring out how to manage something and work around. Right now, I'm figuring out how to manage a problem in my arm, and I've got my knee. It's a constant process of just, oh God, if I had have started training with the end goal of physical performance and balance in my body, things would look very different. Things would look very different.
But on like that said as well, I mean, we get people saying this to us all the time. I got people saying this at the workshop on the weekend. People say, I've never heard this stuff before. Nobody's ever told me that this is the way that you're meant to train. And when we were younger, nobody told us. We didn't. We had to figure this out for ourselves. Yeah. And we literally did, because...
Well, I guess that's the benefit of having an accumulated 70 years of training or 60 years of training now.
I mean the two people, and we're not saying that nobody does this, right? Now there's more and more people that are doing this kind of thing. But when we were younger as personal trainers, the two people that I can think of that were the first people that were really teaching us this stuff was Tony Battaji and Ian King, because Tony Battaji taught us.
Charles Poliquin was really big on structural balance.
But I didn't work with Charles Poliquin, so you did. So Charles Poliquin, Tony Battaji, and Ian King, and then for me, I've Ida Portal was an influence as well. Aaron McKenzie was somebody that helped teach us this, but the first part of structural balance that we really were taught was from left to right side, symmetry. So the left and the right side of the body need to be balanced, and agonist to antagonist, so opposing muscle groups. So example of the bicep and the tricep, they need to be balanced, or the chest and the back, that old one. But I think it was Ian King was probably the first person that said to us the concept of you need to be balanced between strength and flexibility.
Yeah.
And he was the first person that was a very, very highly renowned coach that you couldn't argue with his accomplishments, because he was the head strength coach for the Australian Olympic team, and his Olympians had won many, many, many gold medals. So when we were in that room with him and everybody said, can you teach us Olympic lifting? And he assessed us all and he said, you've all got to get more flexible. None of you are ready to do Olympic lifting yet.
I think that was the difference with Ian King was that he really highlighted it and then said, this is a no-go scenario.
Yep.
Whereas Tony and Charles both had prereqs for mobility. They both used the overhead squat assessment. They both we did a lot of flexibility assessments for PICP and stuff like that, and with Tony. The thing is, neither of them had achieved a really high level of flexibility. So this is my theory. Okay? Neither of them, to my knowledge, had achieved a high level of flexibility. Therefore, they didn't understand what it actually does when you do.
Yeah.
It is so incredibly empowering to unlock the body's flexibility and now have a fully functional body that can sit in an arse to grass squat with 180 kilos on your back, and that's a rest position, you know.
Whereas Ian hadn't he? He was in his 70s when we worked with him, and he was more flexible than I was back then. And I was the most flexible in the room besides him.
Yeah, and I think that makes a real big difference. It's one thing to say something; it's another thing to have felt it. You know, I went through this experience. Just very quickly, I'll share a story. Recently, with my eye, I had a very bad damage to my eye, and I had been to 2 different surgeons, and both of them did operations on my eye that were the most painful things you could ever possibly imagine, and neither of them had any respect for how painful it was. And I was like, look, it's one thing to know, oh yeah, in theory this is the most painful thing that the human body can really endure before you kind of pass out, but then you don't prescribe any painkillers after the operation. Like, it's like, just go home and rest and keep your eyes closed. It's like, fucking hell, man, I almost died in the first 48 hours after the first operation. I literally was in that much pain. It made me cry. Like, I was like a little kid again, you know? And that's just so funny, like to know something in theory and to say, yes, this is right, you approach it very differently when you've achieved it or experienced it yourself. You know?
And that was the same with us, because we used to tell people to stretch all the time, but it was never something that we did ourselves. It was never something that we'd achieved ourselves. So we just told people to do it, but we didn't have it as a go, no-go thing. And now, because we've achieved a decent level of flexibility, we know what it feels like, and we know that it's not a nice to have, it's a must have.
It's an essential.
It's an essential.
And it's funny because there's a notion out there among healthcare professionals that I've spoken to physios, friends of mine who are physiotherapists, you know, who believe that certain people can't get flexible. There's a theory, and I think that theory has fucked with people's minds about it. You know, it's messed up people's perception of, you know, it's like, and it's the reason is because flexibility training is not as linear in progression as strength, and we've spoken about that before.
And there are people who, like, for example, there's certain people that have a certain makeup of the hip socket where they'll probably never be able to do a 180-degree middle split. I mean, I've got FAI hip, and that really affects my hip extension. Like, it's very, very hard for me to make any progress with that. But I think what, you know, the take home for that is, for what you're saying, is that so fucking what if you're unable to get as flexible as the most flexible people in the world? You can still get more flexible, and it's use it or lose it. So it doesn't matter if you're not capable of achieving the highest levels of flexibility. You still have to do it. You still have to stretch, and you have to improve, because if you're not improving it, you're going backwards.
Well, this ties into the key take home for today, which is that it's not about comparing yourself to what other people have achieved. It's about maximizing your physical performance, building your body into a superhuman, discovering what your true potential is, you know. And that is a very tough journey to go on, because we tend to, maybe even subconsciously, compare ourselves to other people constantly. And you know, when you see someone do something, you say, okay, that's my standard. That's my standard of excellence that I want to achieve. And you may not be able to achieve that because they may have a different shaped pelvis than you, or they may have slightly different genetics or whatever, different history, different injuries. And that's what we need to talk about. Now, what I want to do this week is share one person's experience with our foundations program. So can you bring up, was it Aiden?
Yeah, Aiden.
Yeah. Can you read it verbatim? Because I think this is really, really important, because we have we're not hand picking at random people. We're picking people who had a very high competency in strength prior to starting our foundations program. And we no longer make it a prerequisite. We used to make it a prerequisite for people to move through the foundations program. We used to bring people into our gym, and then they had to do this 18-week program before they could join the main group, which was a real problem because it had created this level of segregation that people just didn't like, and it didn't work. We didn't have a very high level of adherence. We had a very high level of churn among new people. Unfortunately, the people who made it through that program are all our highest achievers in the gym, you know. So,
Funny
you know,
how
it
it's
would have
worked.
been bloody great if we could have got that message across strong enough so people would just go, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to persevere with it. But in the online groups, we have a much higher level of adherence because it's much easier because the online is it's kind of you versus you. You're going to your own gym or setting up your home gym or whatever. You're not coming into the class environment at Unity and going, why aren't I training with those guys over there who are doing the cool stuff, you know? So it doesn't create that level of segregation. And we get this transformation with the online guys that I want other people to be inspired and motivated by, you know?
Yeah.
And so this week, every day, among talking about the most relevant points for our fast growth workshop, I want to highlight one person's experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, it's actually Aiden's post that made us think about this because truth be told, Yanni and I and Richard are well aware of how groundbreaking, unique, revolutionary, and absolutely amazing the UMS Foundations program is. That program has been written, tested, rewritten, retested, rewritten, retested, rewritten, and retested to a point where it is absolutely amazing. And it's been there, it sits there, people do it, but every now and then somebody speaks up about their experience when they get through it. So this is what motivated us to do this show,
Now,
Aiden.
before we say this, let me be absolutely 100%, 100 million % clear. Myself, Rad, and Richard have all done this program in its entirety.
Yep.
I've done it a number of times.
Yep.
So this is something that if you want to tread our path, if you want to follow in our footsteps, this is 100 million % where you should start.
Yep.
There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about it. The only exception is if you're already carrying quite an acute injury and you need to plug in a rehab module to that.
And then
you
all
know?
we do is modify the element of it. If you've got a lower body injury, we modify the lower body workouts. And if you've got an upper body injury, we modify the upper body workouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, this program is endorsed by Phil as being the best he has said this to us many times. He has said, I cannot think of a better way to train people than this general population.
Yeah.
Not sports specific.
Yeah.
But anybody who just wants to be strong, fit, flexible, athletic, and be able to do whatever it is that they want, Phil has said to us many times, I cannot think of a better way to train people.
I'll go into a bit more detail about why this program is so powerful after Rad reads this and we discuss.
Well, maybe
this.
we're going to have to do that tomorrow because we're out of time.
Okay.
So let's read Aiden's testimonial here. So Aiden has said, just finished the Foundations program, 18 weeks total of 4 workouts per week. Here are my thoughts below. Number 1, for those who say it's a beginner program, I dare them to try single leg football hamstring curls. Number 2, I now have much better scapular control from starting at jumping pull-ups and progressing to eccentrics and then full pull-ups. Number 3, my grip forearm strength has increased dramatically. Number 4, for flexibility, it has been an absolute game changer. Shoulders, hips, and ankles all have much more range of motion and feel way better. Number 5, I have been seriously training for 6 years now, and I can honestly say I've never felt better. And then there's a couple of people that have made a couple of comments, and the one response that Aiden's given that I think is relevant, he's saying to Clay, he's saying, this is an awesome program, dude. It gets a bit weird doing some of the exercises at the beginning. He's making a joke here saying side step-ups and frog pumps, and he's saying LOL. But as the phases progress, you can definitely see the reasons why those exercises were necessary. So yeah, guys, that's one example of someone that's been training for 6 years, and Aiden posts videos of him all the time in the UMS online coaching group. The dude is in good shape, man. And yeah, it's a great testimonial to what that program does for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm really want to go deep, and we're going to go deep this week. We're actually going to do 5 days this week to the Movement Mastermind, UMS Movement Mastermind group to talk about this, because I really think that this is important for people to understand.
Well, it's very important right now because people are going back to gyms, and we're getting a lot of questions from people saying, I'm going back to the gym, what should I be doing? And guys, the truth is that when you're ready to say, all right, I think these guys at Unity Gym are onto something. I think they know what they're talking about. I'm going to give it a try. This is what you do.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to blur the lines here and turn these streams into a marketing campaign for this program. What I want to talk about is the higher level, the macro, the meta of why this is so important. If you don't build a strong foundation, you cannot achieve mastery in what you're trying to do, and you certainly will not achieve the desired physique. Now, I'm not going to take this away from anyone. I, like anyone else, Rad, Richard, we all have physique goals. We all do. And that's totally natural human behavior. We all want to look a certain way. We all want to look great with our kit off. We all, and that's totally fine to be motivated by that. It's very normal, in fact, But you cannot use that as your burning desire for this reason. You cannot, because it distracts you from what's truly important, which is to be building a foundation and to be building a balanced body. I'm really intrigued as to why Lee Clements put an angry face up there.
I think she's done it by accident.
Well, I don't know. We'll find. Let us know. Why are you angry, Lee?
Yeah.
Balance, Rad brushed over this, symmetry from left to right side. No one is symmetrical. No, your body's not really designed to. If you draw a line down, even your face is unsymmetrical. Yeah. And so you can never achieve perfect symmetry, but you should be striving for limb symmetry, because limb symmetry is important. When you start to do the big movements like deadlifts and squats, barbell squats or bench press, if you don't have decent limb symmetry, then you start to create huge imbalances in the body, because the dominant side will always take the majority of the load for that last rep, and the last rep or two is where the big gains are made, So first of all, you have to achieve that a basic limb symmetry. Second, you must understand that there is an algorithm that the body needs to operate on between agonist and antagonist muscle groups in each joint for that joint to remain structurally balanced, for that joint to remain solid and stable, And then if you go a little bit deeper than that, not just the agonist-antagonist muscle groups, but the global outer unit muscle groups and the inner unit stability muscle groups have an algorithm that need to be in balance, And these things are critical for your longevity. It's a nice to have, You will build a much higher level of performance later on down the track with a much lower risk of injury if you nail these things early on,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, yeah. Look, it's just this is where the biggest gains in my training in the last 5 years by a long shot have been from this. Have been from understanding structural balance and just the importance of it. Yeah. Throughout the whole body. And once you accept that is the most important thing to start with to build that foundation. Oh man.
Well, it's the second most important thing. It's the second most important thing. The most important thing is to get your mind, your head right. The reason why you train, really clearly defined first, and that falls in alignment with this.
Yep.
What's the reason why you train? Do you want to be the best version of yourself, or do you want to try and emulate someone else?
Yep.
And if you're wanting to try and emulate someone else, a bodybuilding magazine image you've seen, a figure modeling magazine you've seen, a model you've seen,
even a gymnast
or a bodybuilder or a power lifter, or you want to beat someone in that sport, and you obsess over that mastery goal first, I guarantee you there's going to come a time, it'll be within a decade, where you regret it, where you go, far out, I should have focused on building my foundation better and then pursuing that. The mastery and the physique comes as a natural side effect to building the rest, to building a really healthy daily movement practice, to first really defining why you're going to get up every morning at 5 a.m. to get your exercise session in, and aligning that with the right reasons, and then building a really healthy habit of daily movement practice, and then learning, not just trying to, but learning how to eat strategically to support those two things.
Absolutely.
how to fuel your body.
Absolutely.
Let's go deeper into this week, tribe. It's a great discussion. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. Lee, it looks like it was an accident. There was an angry face that came up from you, an angry emoji. I was hoping that it was just that you wanted us to talk all day about this topic because you were liking it so much. Guys, what I can confirm is that Rad and I are going to be working extremely hard, and Richard, on producing this content as an online course, which I'm super excited about because it's an area of our program that's been needed for a long time. And that'll be rolling out in the next few months. And in the meantime, start thinking about what it is that you're trying to achieve and where the best point is to start for you.
Yep. Good stuff, guys. We'll see you tomorrow for more awesomeness.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise because we believe that health is about performance, not